My name is Michael, and I am the network manager for the Retreat Center collaboration. And I'm delighted that you found your way here today and to this space, and to this gathering, into this circle. Um, it is a joy to be together. And I'm just going to offer us a moment of centering. So I would just invite you to take your hands off your keyboard or put your pen down. Maybe just find yourself in your chair, find your feet on the floor, and just we're going to take a few breaths in to bring ourselves into center and to be aligned with one another in this circle. So let's just take a few nice big breaths in together and out. We allow all that's happened in our day so far. Maybe it's morning, maybe it's evening where you are. We just set aside all of that so that we can come to this circle to learn together as peers, to learn a little bit more about HR practices that help to inform our work in retreat and in our world. And we just enjoy this moment of silence to ready ourselves to be together. And we come back to the circle and we just look around at the folks that have found their way here, and we offer gratitude for each person and for the work that they do and for the place that they're in. If you haven't had a chance, you're invited to, in the text, just let us know who you are and where you are and what center you might be affiliated with. And if you know the indigenous territory you're on, you can add that in as well. And it is my honor and privilege to introduce you to Tatyana Sanikovich, who has been leading these lunchtime for me at least, lunchtime sessions called Tea with Tatyana. And these are monthly sessions where we get introduced to different HR related topics. And today is HR with those who have no HR support or experience. I believe that's the topic. And Tatyana is a consultant as well. So if you find yourself needing support, you can reach out to Tatyana, and you can work out something together. She is an amazing human. She's fun, she's funny, and she knows retreat. She worked at Esalen for many years and has supported many centers. So, Tatyana, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you all for coming. I'm delighted to see all of you for this very exciting topic. But I hope I will make it engaging and exciting. So, in a sense that you walk away with something new that you learned today. And so I will just more background. There's retreat center experience that I have. There's also a bunch of nonprofits and then hospitality. So that's over about 20 years of HR. And every time add a year, I'm like, really? Is this really happening? And so we will, let me just start sharing the screen for all of us to. So I will do the presentation, and then Michael is very kind to watch the chat as well. So please post in the chat as questions or things as we go. I will do my best, not try, I will do my best to slow down and kind of watch what's needed and go through all the slides. Not, it's all okay. I'll speak to some of them. We'll have a breakout session for some reflections and some questions that I have for you. And then I'm planning to leave space at the end as well for Q&A, really. So literally, if you have things that you want to bring forward that we can brainstorm, if you feel comfortable, then happy to do that as well. So let me go to a slide mode. Well, first of all, can you hold on? It's loading before I ask you. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So kind of the tagline, the HR for non-HR leaders, meaning non-HR that you didn't formally come through HR, haven't done fully just HR focused work. And what the parts that I want to focus on today is kind leaders, hard conversations, and real consequences. Kindness comes a lot with retreat centers, and that in leadership. And so I want to put some focus on that. Hard conversations are in any kind of leadership conversations. People are quite uncomfortable with those. And then all of that has actually real consequences and implications. And so, what I wanted to talk today is let me move all of you to the top. There we go. If you lead people, you are already doing HR, whether it's in your title or not in your title, whether you were trained for it or not. The minute you are actually leading somebody, the minute there's somebody that you're responsible for, supervisor, manager, director, on and on and on, somebody that reports to you, you are doing HR. When you're peer to peer, that's different. But once you are actually supervising somebody in whatever capacity, that's when we start doing HR. So what I wanted this session is not to be about theory, like HR parts. So not about policies, templates, and checklists. What I actually really wanted to focus for us is actually the reality of what it takes to lead people, and that you're already making the HR decisions, whether you call them that or not. And so it's about the identity shift. And I've talked about identity shifts before, about doer versus a leader. That happens when you move from being a doer and the fixer and the reliable one to being the person whose clarity shapes the system. I will come back to clarity over and over, and you will definitely see that thread through. So what I'm asking of you today is to stay present, notice what resonates, and let yourself reflect. You don't need to perform here. You don't need to have answers. I hope it's not a heavy session, but it definitely is an honest one, at least the way I would see it. So I want this not to create pressure, but to offer relief. The part that you already, if it's not in your, even if it's not in your title, if you lead people, you're already doing HR. And a lot of times people go, oh my God, that comes with so much. It feels heavy. And so today I just want to kind of pull some things apart for you to maybe lighten the load, just to show that how to use certain language to support that. So then the weight becomes lighter and decisions become clearer. Again, we're in the clarity piece. Let me see. Hello. There we go. So being kind is not the same as being clear, and good intentions don't remove hard decisions, as you can see. So kindness is a big value a lot and contribution and behavior that I see, particularly in retreat centers and in service, when we're in service to somebody, or it's actually even culturally things like, are we kind? Am I being kind? And a lot of times that's a big mix for the leaders. So I can tell you most leaders in the room are kind. That's not the question. But kindness and clarity are not the same thing, at least to me. Kindness is about intention. Clarity is about impact. So you can have good intentions that does not remove difficult and hard decisions. The good intentions that don't prevent the discomfort that lots of people are trying to avoid, and they don't stop the consequences from unfolding. So where I notice that leaders get stuck is believing that if they soften the message enough, the outcome will get gentler. Actually, generally, the opposite happens. Let that sink in. Quiet reflection for yourself. Think about it. Where might you be kind, but not clear? Just take a moment. And if you feel like sharing the chat, that would be super helpful. But take a moment, a minute, and let me see the time, just so I'm checking the time as well, is where do you consider you've been kind but not clear. I would love to hear, and whether in the chat or a couple of, it's a quite a honest, I realize it could be an honest and vulnerable reflection, and we're here for our growth. Any willingness? Not sure the chat. Anybody?
There's nothing in the chat, but I'm thinking back to my work as a former executive director and worrying that I would hurt people's feelings if I was too clear about, an HR piece. And so
Yep.
would often try to couch it with kindness, and it almost always came back to have not been clear enough and then have to have an even harder conversation. So that was, one of my good learnings. And Alexander just wrote in the chat, I definitely tend to lean into compassion and understanding over offering critical feedback or asking team members to step up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that echoes, I think, with what I was just saying to Alexander.
And it's really, both of your examples are great because Alexandra, I'll look into yours, is that part of being compassionate, like you're all doing this work, or everybody actually coming into retreat center, nonprofit world, for the most part, are compassionate humans and exercise that muscle quite well. It's the part of that clarity of asking the delegating, for example, right? Or clarity of asking for support, which I'll speak to that about the leaders as well, is that you've got to ask for help. But the best one of the ways to ask for it is like, what are you asking for? Are you clear in what you're asking for? So thank you very, very much for those couple
John,
of
do you mind if I just tag on
no,
to that a little bit? Yeah,
yeah,
one of the things that I reflect on is that compassion tends to have this sort of like soft, gentle, quality, and I think one of the things that comes up for me around what you're saying about clarity is that clarity can actually be the more compassionate
yes,
offering, versus, if you're being so soft and so gentle and so diffuse that someone is sort of swimming in ambiguity, that
yeah.
might not actually be the most compassionate thing, especially if you really need them to step up and ultimately it leads to a more difficult decision down the road, or harmful impacts to the rest of the team.
It's a very great point. Is that part of like what I when I was learning English, the whole expression of beat around the bush, is that like people just go in circles about lots of things, particularly, in terms of difficult conversations. And at the end, everybody leaves the conversation like, well, whether what just happened or just have more other feelings that one person was like, well, but I was exactly being compassionate and kind. And it doesn't, I mean, there's a fine line. So I appreciate you kind of bringing the softness piece for sure.
There's a few more comments. Do you want to hear those?
Yeah.
So Liz said, I'm a laid back leader, which often appears kind, and sometimes things like scheduling and expectation gets muddy.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura offered, I'm discovering that I have a habit of being overly optimistic about team suggestions. So, for example, I might respond cheerfully, I'll look into that, even if I don't have the bandwidth to do so, or don't agree that it's necessarily a good or appropriate call, but it just delays having to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Great examples, I think.
Yeah, those are all of these. Notice like there's a piece in the biggest piece for me is actually all of your awareness of the behaviors. That's the first step. Without it, we can't change something. Is your awareness what behaviors you are tending to perform and do, and what might that lose for you or the team, or like what's the consequences, right? As we're all speaking. So sometimes that might work, Laura, for example, in your example, depending on the conversation you might still say, I will look into, and I would also say, and whenever the time, and then give the time by when you will come back to that person or even to yourself and just say it out loud. And then by that time, come back to the person and be like, I've given it a thought, and then that's a no. What I've found myself as an HR leader, I remember clearly, I used to think that like a decision right on the spot was like I could make decisions quickly. That was a strength. Overused sometimes is actually that space that I literally had to teach myself to not give an answer at every single conversation right away, and always saying, I will come back to you by tomorrow, or I will come back to you by, and the bigger decisions I would give myself, I learned my cadence was about 48 hours. And in those 40 hours, to my surprise at the beginning of this process for myself, I would actually come back to a different decision, because I'll go for a walk and things will percolate and they will assimilate, and I will come from not from A to B, I will come from A to like Z, and I go, how did I end up here? But it pulled different threads. So it's actually a fine thing to say, even if you have something inside of you be like, this is the dumbest idea at the moment, is also, I think, as a leader, it'd be like, it's not cutting it off right away. It's like, but it's coming back. It's closing the loop. It's having the clarity that you will come back and you will say yes, no, maybe, whichever way. That's what also trains us and trains our culture to be like, yes, you can bring things forward, and we will decide, or I will decide in a couple of days and come back to you. So those are great. The part about this slide, the avoid the avoidance. The avoidance is a snowball. I am yet to see it work very well for people, actually, for the leader and for the people that the leader works with. So sometimes it can feel kind. It's like we're not, you're not straight on addressing something, or if there's a conflict, it's like, but overall, it can feel protective, it can feel like buying time. But avoidance, it doesn't protect people. It delays impact. And so the cost doesn't disappear. The part about the avoidance and the cost, it's going to show up somewhere else. It's going to show up in resentment, in confusion, sometimes in burnout. It's like that's the part. It's like the tickler, what I would call it when working with clients, is that whatever is in the back of your mind, it doesn't disappear. It's just going to be, that conversation that you want to have, or something else that you need to address. It's there, and it's literally like just taking your energy. You're draining your energy constantly. So I think one of the I can't remember his name, kind of the time management and like guru guy, he kept saying, take everything off the melon. So if there's something in the back of our melon carrying our attention, is if we don't download it or decide or make a decision or have a conversation, it keeps niggling away. I also call it like a low-grade fever. It's like, when you have that low-grade fever, it's not quite spiking, so you're not completely out, but it's just this like in the back. That will sap your energy. You will look at the days and be like, I don't understand why I don't have energy. Think of the things that are being avoided. And it's not about blaming, it's about naming the pattern, again, like awareness. What can that you can interrupt? HR, a lot of times with smaller organizations, which a lot of you are part of that, it's like you don't have a department. Of course, with larger organizations, there's a department for that. But I actually wanted to bring it forward to be like, it's not a department. And even when there is a department, a lot of times it's like, oh, it's an HR issue. And it's like, guess where those issues get created? They created in all the other departments by people, right? So it's not a department. It's a set of decisions that you are making. Granted, in a large organization, or if you have a consultant, you can come to somebody, and we'll talk about later, and be like, hey, am I going the right direction and stuff? But overall, all of these things, and I'll talk about like the main 8 pillars of HR, but all of these kind of, and what falls into them, but you do all of these things. How consciously you do them, with what information and what experience and all of that, that's a different question. And so these are not HR topics, they're all leadership moments, right? So when it comes to like, oh, that's an HR piece, it's like that always generally a lot of times feels it's like heavy, emotional, or risky that goes to like, oh, that's HR. But all of these decisions, they don't disappear when we hand them off. They still shape people's experience of working here, which means they shape culture. Doesn't matter what's in the handbook, if you even have one, it's the behaviors that people exhibit. And you as a leader are a model of it. It's like parenting, seriously. It's not what we say, it's what we do that people pay attention to. Sure, the congruency needs to be there between saying and doing, but it's really, people really pay attention to what you do. Liz, like you brought a good point. You're like, hey, I'm laid back as a leader, and I actually, I trust people and I want them to step, and it can be interpreted in all kinds of ways unless you explicitly communicate and have conversations when things feel off. And you and I have had those, and you've had great success. But you've put intention and like effort and work into it of having those difficult conversations. And then after that, like staying on top of being with that connection and what's important to the other leader and employee that you work with. So I wanted us to, let me see the time. Okay. Oh, how many of us are here? Let me come back. Stop sharing. Oh, it's lovely to see more faces here. Oh, great. So Pam, if we can do groups of three, if that works, just so people can talk to each other. So groups of three, and then let's do it for good 6 minutes. So each person has a 2 minute. And what we're gonna do is, I took the slide out from you guys, sorry. Hold on, now it went away somewhere. Where'd it go? I have it here, but I'll find it. What people decisions is taking up the most space in your mind right now? That's question number one. So what people related decision is taking up, what's that thing in the back of your mind or the front? And then what are you hoping will resolve itself? Where is it you're like, I swear if I don't look at it, they'll figure it out, or whatever that might be. So two questions. One is what people decisions is taking up the most space in your mind right now, and what are you hoping will resolve itself? And then have at it for a couple of minutes with each other and come back and we can reflect a bit.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back, everybody. I was in one of the groups. I love being the fly on the wall and just listening, but it's also that what energizes me the most is listening to people and their real things. Is there a couple of you who could share just from your group, maybe a general thing, or maybe from your own case, like what has come up, or what kind of like, what did you notice in your conversations? Maybe the thread was. We'll take a couple of minutes. You can unmute yourself and speak. One thing that taught me the hard way, as I had to do three layoffs, in three different years at Esalen. And one year we went from like 250 employees to 50. And those are the conversations that I had to sit with all the people, and particularly with certain leaders, because they did not have emotional capacity, and they named it intelligence. Actually, my CEO was like, I am not doing them alone. You have to sit here. Those conversations, what they taught me was as hard as it was letting people go, and as much as, and it was because of nature. Later, it was the people who came back to me, what taught me and actually thanked me for that moment, because they didn't have the strength to shift their comfort and all of that. And it's that action, it's compassionately to my best ability and everything, that actually propelled them to go and seek and make changes and do things in life that they wouldn't have done. So I literally actually carry that. where I take that as kindness, as hard as those conversations are, it's actually it's the hindsight 2020. It's like in that moment, they might not think so, and you might not fully think so in a way because it's hard. But trust me, over our time, like that's the part that's the path and the journey. But how can you support yourself on that path and journey of letting go of people and separating that it's not serving your organization, your team, or whatever, in whichever way, and making those decisions and holding that space, but also doing it gracefully and allowing people to actually seek and grow and find other things. And wrestling, they live there. You know what I mean? So that's another layer, like home and work. So I really carry that with me through all of my years after, is remembering that space. Anybody else who's willing to share from
Yeah, I can
your
share out.
perspective?
I can share out
Yeah.
from my group. There were a few things that have emerged that include, most nonprofits are working with limited budgetary, they're within budgetary constraints, and so thinking about how do you invest in, care for your staff, create an organizational culture that's supportive, and particularly of this kind of younger folks or earlier career um, folks. And staff retention is also uh,
Mhm.
a big question, in terms of supporting the organization in the long term. Yeah, so hiring, recruiting, and then retaining staff when you're working within a limited budget. And how do you invest in staff, but also make sure that the needs of the organization are met, that you have kind of the staffing to actually so that people aren't overworked. Um, yeah, and then I'll share kind of and then donations too. Like when you're working at some organizations that are volunteer led,
Mhm.
and so you end up with a lot of churn and the challenges that come with that churn. And so getting over that hump of asking people for money to support dignified wages for people who
Yeah.
are doing this important work. And then I'll just sort of briefly, one of the things that I'm sitting with is I just stepped into this leadership role. I'm working with an intergenerational staff, and one of my staff members is quite a bit older than me, and so I'm navigating that relationship with this person who I care deeply about, and we have our relationship extends beyond my tenure in this particular role. But how do I give critical feedback to this person of like, hey, you're really good at these things, and this is an area that's a part of your job that I really I need you to learn more about or invest in, training, or this is something that and to think beyond like the task, like not just the task, but notice those moments when, oh, there's this second order effect that maybe was unanticipated that I can just address now versus sending it up to Alexander so that he can then come back and tell me that, oh, hey, could you also do this next thing? um, I'll close there.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's so much like in all of this, and there's so much beauty and richness, and it's yes, yes, and yes to everything you said. And that is the complexity, and I would use the word beauty of being a leader, at least the way I saw it, is that on one hand, the growth never stops because you have all of these parts that you could turn into. And at the same time, you get to work with humans and their like just the impact of their life. We spend so much time at work, it matters. We are at work and we're doing the work that we're all choosing to do because all of that matters to us. So I think even in anything is that's the part that's a big piece. Let me
Just a
just, yeah,
just a quick tag, which is that again
yeah.
on this compassion end, is that my tendency historically has been to dive in and to do the work. And I'm like, oh, okay, this person didn't quite do what I needed them to do, so let me just do it myself. And the compassionate thing, or this is just an insight that I'm taking away from this conversation, is actually to give this person an opportunity to step into and to grow and to change. So anyway, I had that moment of thinking in
Oh
that
my
way.
God, my work is done. The conversation is over. But that's the part. It's this, yes, it's longer. It's this. It's like Liz, you also mentioned, right? Like, hey, are they doing even if you step aside and let them do it, but are they doing it as fast or however you would have done it or the way would have done it? Yes, it takes longer. People do it differently. That's for us to let go of control. So then you don't do everything. Like that's not, and nobody's indispensable. So that's also like that heroing stuff is to watch for. So yeah, thank you so much. Let me see if I can get through these. just a little quicker. Let me see. So is it sharing? Let me see what we've got here. There we go. So these are the things that the shifts, and I'll talk about some shifts, but the behaviors that get normalized, for example. And so what's not named get normalized. Again, that's how we're creating culture. And so when we're over accommodating, a lot of times, a resentment on somebody's part is gonna get built. Like it's gonna happen. When we're avoiding conversations, things like addressing something, there's an inequity, just like you were speaking to, is that, well, what are the other team members looking? It's like, oh, well, this person gets away or whatever. They get to do this and not this. Like, that's not equity. Fairness, that definitely comes up. Silence creates culture. Again, it's what are the behaviors that we're training by not speaking, by not addressing, by not making changes that get normalized. That's where I'll learn back. Alexander, to your point, leadership doesn't mean you carry everything. It means you don't carry it alone in all kinds of ways. And so when one leader is like, sometimes that's what they say themselves, like, I'm a great leader and I do all of those things. And it's like, that's a question. I would really look into that part. Here's the three main shifts that I've noticed that matter. And that's just something for you to ponder is shifting from nice, just that intention again, to impact, to honest and steady. Steadiness and clarity. Are you a consistent leader? Meaning, do people know that consistently you're going to show up consistently? When you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. Is there consistent in you? Or are you changing your mind all the time? That's also a behavior, and that's a consistency that you will change your mind. It's not the easiest for your staff, I can tell you that much. Personal rescue. Well, I'll just do it myself. It's just faster. This is perfect. Shared agreements. Shared agreement might be, like whatever. They'll have it a couple of times, for example, right? Or they have a question, they need to come back, or like come back with the question. Or if they didn't know how to do something, whatever your shared agreements are, have them explicitly somewhere. Go over them in meetings, practice them, speak about them. Got to think about them first and then decide on them. They're shared. So however you are with your team, make them shared. This space, our retreat centers and all of that allows for a lot of intuition and a lot of people that actually can tap into the intuition. I would like to invite you to combine that with structure. And a lot of times people are like, I don't like structure. It's all corporate, it's boxy. It's containment. So somebody would have told me or something, but I just remembered a long time ago in terms of HR, like just humans, it's like children. And again, if you put a big fence like the whatever chain link, right? But there's a huge territory. Humans are still going to go and test where those boundaries are. It's actually for safety. We do that for safety. Like, how far can I figure this out? We're all different to feel safe. That's for me what structure means. You provide the structure, or like Alexander, you were bringing your group, like you provide the structure, like you've done this, I will look at it, and if something needs to be adjusted, I will come back to you. That's also structure. You know what I mean? We provide a structure of meetings. What are those meetings for? We provide a structure actually in our breakout, like job descriptions. I was like, oh my God, this is like the best thing an HR person can hear. And it was about clarity. When job description exists, you can actually have a much more clear conversation with the person about their job, as opposed to when they don't exist at all, or just some agreements that everybody looks at. And then the part about, just reminding the time, terminations. That seems to be one of the hardest things. How I would say, and we've talked about it before, the clean engines are kind of the prolonged ambiguity. I really believe in that. Look at your ambiguity for yourself and your team and how it's affecting. It could be okay, but if you already thought about it, so this is if you already imagine letting somebody go, you're late structurally, not morally. So you can work with that for as long as you have the bandwidth to work with it. But if you already thought that this person is probably not working, unless you're a very impulsive human, then there's something there. So I always say it's just a matter of time. How you do it also really matters. Like I'm a big, it's like it really matters. And pay attention to your timing, your internal and then an organizational. What's the relationship between the two? These are the areas, like just overall, like the 8 pillars of HR. All of this stuff, like that all lives a lot of times in HR department when people say it in big organizations. But if that none exists, this is all you, by the way. And this is just one aspect of your job. All of these pieces, you know what I mean? I can talk about each of them in very different ways. And just like you were mentioned, it's like you got to hire the person, you got to retain, you got to performance manage, you got to, look at the compensation. Are we retaining them? Are we onboarding them well? Like what is happening? What's overall workforce planning? You know what I mean? Are they well? Like, are they safe for the job? What's happening? Yes, and not giving this to overwhelm, but it's just saying sometimes you can't do it all alone. That's the part where you also got to use discernment to see where you things you can do and where the things you actually do tap into other resources and other individuals. And so the other piece about leadership is it could feel very lonely. And there is a saying like leadership is, lonely at the top. Yes, because you actually can't push it onto somebody else. You can't actually share a majority of the things that you're grappling with any of your team members. Because if you're it, if you're it in an organization, I suggest you find somebody outside of the organization, whether it's your friend or somebody or a coach or a consultant, somebody who's your thought partner, A, so you don't go crazy, seriously, and B is that somebody who can check you for like, are you in the right, is your container correct? Is your structure, are you within your role in a way that have, done it? So getting that support, that's not a weakness. And a lot of times leaders are like, well, I've done it before, like I can do it all myself. Sure. How well? And what's the impact on you and the organization? And so I call it, I don't find it's responsible leadership because it's also just your own head. And then again, we go back to those 8 pillars or whatever. You haven't done, a lot of it, you would have done it by like just by standing by, or you had to, and it's just like you just putting the wheels on whatever machinery that you're producing without information or structure or wisdom or anything. Find support. I wanted to have a slide is to call sooner when actually for support. So these are the things that it's like, these are actually the things that I would suggest that you have somebody that you whether have a whatever retainer or somebody you could call when needed is hourly. You're considering termination. So then you can figure out the arc and you can figure out the impact and how to work with this well. Feedback, as some of you mentioned, which I'm imagining is feedback for that person hasn't changed their behavior. And everybody's like, well, what do I do? It's like, well, there's ways and things to approach it. Again, not just in your own head, because you're like, I don't know what to do. Pay feels sensitive or hard to explain. That happens a lot, particularly when pay just happens. It just happens. You come into the organization, the pay was this way, and then new people come in. I can guarantee you they want to be paid higher than what you have in the organization. And the market demands that from you. So how do you make that congruent with your organization? Do you have a pay philosophy? Something. What I always say with leaders is that can you explain why you made the decision that you made and are you consistent with them, especially when it comes to pay? People's pay and housing, a lot of times in the at work, is like it's fundamental, it's basic needs, right? In a sense. So it gets very touchy. And so that I wouldn't take it lightly. The part that Alexander, you brought up, founders and directors are holding too much. And then they're like, nobody else can do this. Like, and I can't take a break. Like, you definitely need a thought partner. And then you're losing sleep over people's decision. Whether it's niggling away or whether you had a reflective moment here and be like, oh, I didn't realize this was happening. Or whether you're really aware that you're losing sleep over something, like you need support. So those are the moments when I would say, create a relationship with an advisor of some sort that you trust. And then that's your thought partner. That's who some clients of mine that I coach, that's what they come. That's not just their venting place, but they play off things and scenarios and in whichever ways that they can't do with their subordinates or their boss. And so it's not like a cycle in their head. I recently listened to, and this is a link here to the podcast. I literally a couple of days ago, and I put it like this last slide yesterday, the day before. I was listening to a podcast, and it's a couple of years old, with Brene Brown and Priya Parker. And Priya Parker is a space creator, facilitator. And they were talking about actually Brene Brown's meeting, like an all hands meeting that they have in their organization. And it was beautiful. So if you could, maybe take it in, I'll put it in chat right after I'm finished. It's a great, well, for me, it was a delightful listen. But what Brene said, and she like hold a lot of things in her organization. She said, I'm a better creator than I'm a manager. That happens a lot, actually, with people. I'm a better visionary than I'm a manager. So think of yourself, what are you better at? And if you can, that's also understand when it's very small organizations, but like, how can we help you to find those skills and talents of yours and utilize that what you're better at much more than something else? And that might be delegated, that might be there's a different structure, that might be having certain conversations of clarity and like where things sit and how they flow. And then they won't be done the way exactly how you want them, but you get to use your zone of genius a lot more. And that's kind of she was availing. But the whole podcast was really like breaking out like why they gather for that meeting, what's the purpose of the meeting, how do they run it? It's amazing. I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. And so the last thing that I have, and I know we've got like a couple of more minutes, but I do want to hear or see in the chat what's one insight or a moment of clarity you got today, and like Alexander, how you just shared before. And always, that's a coach in me, what's one action step that you will take after this call? You don't have to take it right after, but in your mind and write it down. Even if it doesn't happen, when we write things down, we have a different accountability space within us. So that's it. If you can, anybody willing to share the last anything, the insight or a little shift or something you realized? A couple of you already have in the questions, but I would love to hear from a couple of you as well. Yeah, Laura, of course.
Hey. So Tatyana, you already know this, but I'm at an organization that's undergoing a big leadership transition, and the team that I work with is coming from a culture of avoidance and a lack of trust and ambiguity. And that's what I'm stepping into as the incoming director. So what's been on my mind a lot is how to try and reset some of the expectations where possible, and some of the relationships. And what I'm realizing more and more is that my effort to do that has to be based in really clear conversations and clear follow through, and also maintaining boundaries around what will or will not work going forward. I can only come in with my clarity and my boundaries and try to sort of contain and structure what's happening. And everyone on the team will either meet that or they will not. So more boundary
Great.
development for me, which is always good.
Boundary is a great topic anyway,
But
all
I
the
think
time.
a lot of it is because of a lack of boundaries in the past and a lot of lack of clarity. That's becoming more and more clear.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laura, very much for sharing. I put a link in the chat for the podcast. If you decide to give it a listen, it's a great, like, mind-provoking thing for you as a leader of like, why do you carry meetings that you have? And how do we want to do them differently? And just that kind of stuff. I thank you all. I know Michael, just 5 minutes left. Thank you so much for your time as we zip through this. It's a delight. And so I am really excited to see all of you here and spending this time. And if you have ever any questions, by all means, you can always reach out. So thank you all. Michael, to you.
First of all, Tatyana, just thank you so much for another very insightful conversation. I always take away just so many good tips on how I could have done things differently in the past and how I can do better in the future. If I could like teleport back, I would like do some things differently, but it's always good to learn and grow. I threw in the chat just a reminder and an opportunity for folks to consider a paid membership to RCC. Every membership helps sustain this network from an operations day-to-day standpoint. And so if your organization hasn't had a chance to have a conversation with me about what paid membership looks like, I'd be happy to chat with you. So just reach out. And our next community call is on Monday, February 9th, so just a few days from now, and it will be with Eve Wakas, who will be doing retreat centers and hospitality too. She led an amazing program call a few months ago, and we're bringing her back to do the second half of that. And it's a great opportunity for folks who are running retreat centers to sort of just see. She was in the commercial hotel business with Disney and other organizations, so Hilton and whatnot, and now is running Dhamma. So it'll be a beautiful time to be together. So I hope to see you there, and I hope everybody has a really great rest of their day and week. See you soon.